I stood in my daughter's doorway at midnight on her 6th birthday, my fingernails digging into my palms hard enough to leave marks. The purple dress hung on her closet door, wrinkled now from 4 hours of desperate waiting. 4 hours of her small body perched on the windowsill. 4 hours of watching her face light up at every car that turned down our street, only to crumble when it wasn't them. 4 hours of the same question asked in a voice that got quieter and quieter each time. "Are they coming now, Mommy?" They never came, and I had smiled. I had kept smiling. I had told her maybe they were stuck in traffic, maybe they got lost, maybe they would be here any minute. I had watched my 6-year-old daughter's hope die in real time while I fed her lies to keep her from breaking. The rage burning in my chest right now could incinerate this entire building. My hands were shaking. I pressed them against the doorframe to steady myself, but it didn't help. Nothing helped, because an hour ago, I had gone to their house needing to understand why. I had prepared myself for their excuses, their apologies, their explanations about some emergency that kept them away. But there was no emergency. The tiara I'd saved 2 weeks of grocery money to buy lay on her pillow. Her cheeks were still stained with dried tears. She'd cried herself to sleep, clutching the chocolate cake she'd insisted we make because Grandpa loves chocolate. An hour ago, I drove to their house. I needed to know why. What emergency, what crisis, what unthinkable tragedy had kept them from their granddaughter's birthday party. I found them watching television, not in the hospital, not stranded with a broken-down car, not dealing with any emergency at all. My father sat in his leather recliner with his evening scotch. My mother folded laundry on the couch. The house smelled like the pot roast they'd had for dinner. They had simply decided not to come. Why? I asked, my voice shaking. Why would you promise her and then not show up? My father didn't even mute the television. He took a slow sip of his drink eyes still on the screen and said 5 words that ended everything. "That child means nothing to us. Not Ava, not your granddaughter, that child." My mother kept folding laundry, a dish towel, smoothed flat, folded in half, then in half again. Set it on the neat pile beside her. Then another towel. Her hands moved with the same mechanical precision they always did, as if the living room was just another ordinary Tuesday evening. As if her husband hadn't just said the most monstrous thing I'd ever heard. As if the little girl who'd spent all last week practicing reading books to them, who'd drawn them pictures with crayons, who'd asked me every single day if they were excited for her party, didn't exist at all. I stood there frozen. My legs wouldn't move. My mouth wouldn't open. I watched my mother's hands fold another towel, and I realized she wasn't even uncomfortable. She agreed with him. She had always agreed with him. Then my father added, without looking away from the television, "We never asked you to have a child as a single mother. She's your mistake, not our responsibility. We've been more than generous, Penelope." My mistake. He called my daughter my mistake. The same daughter I'd been sending them $700 a month to support. $700 I earned working night shifts while she slept. $700 that meant I ate ramen for dinner so she could have fresh fruit. $700 that came from skipping my own doctor's appointments, wearing shoes with holes in them, cutting my own hair in the bathroom mirror. For 3 years. Every single month. $25,000 to people who called my child worthless. And they thought they'd been generous. Something inside me went very quiet and very cold. I turned and walked toward the door. My hand was on the doorknob when my father spoke again. "Don't be dramatic, Penelope. You know we're right." I didn't respond. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I just opened the door and walked out into the night, closing it softly behind me. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember getting in the car. I don't remember the route I took. I just remember sitting in my driveway for 20 minutes with the engine off, staring at the steering wheel, replaying those words over and over. "That child means nothing to us. She's your mistake." Now, I'm standing here in my daughter's doorway, watching Ava sleep, watching her small chest rise and fall, her hand curled around that tiara she'd been so excited to wear. And I know exactly what I have to do. The decision crystallizes in my mind with absolute clarity. No more doubt, no more guilt, no more trying to earn love from people who have none to give. Tomorrow, everything changes. If you've ever given everything to people who gave you nothing back, if you've ever wondered if you were wrong for wanting your family to actually love you, stay with me. What happens next will shock you, because when I cut them off, they didn't just lose my money. They lost everything, and the whole world watched it happen. But before I tell you how this story ends, if you're already feeling this in your soul, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between toxic family and your own peace because you're not alone? Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Eleanor Vance. Though my parents still insist on calling me Penelope, the name they gave me at birth before I legally changed it at 21. But everyone who actually knows me, everyone who actually cares, calls me Ellie. I'm 32 years old, a single mother, and up until that devastating phone call, I had spent the better part of my adult life trying to earn my parents' approval. I should have seen the warning signs earlier. I really should have. But when you grow up in a home where love is conditional, where affection is currency traded for obedience, you learn to normalize the abnormal. You learn to accept crumbs and call it a feast. It started small, as these things always do. I was 26, fresh out of a brutal divorce, barely keeping my head above water financially while pregnant with Ava. My ex-husband had vanished the moment he saw the positive pregnancy test, leaving me with nothing but a lease I couldn't afford and a future that terrified me. I moved back home for 3 months, desperate and humiliated, sleeping in my childhood bedroom with its faded wallpaper and the ghosts of who I used to be. My father made sure I knew what a burden I was. Every morning at breakfast, he would slide an itemized list across the table. Groceries I had consumed, utilities I had used, the wear and tear on the furniture. He calculated it all down to the penny, his reading glasses perched on his nose, his expression one of martyred patience. "We're not running a charity here, Penelope," he would say, folding his hands over the papers. "Family takes care of family, but there has to be accountability." My mother would sit beside him, nodding along her coffee cup clutched between her palms like a shield. She never disagreed with him. Not once in my entire life had I heard Carol Vance challenge her husband on anything that mattered. When Ava was born, I thought things might change. I was naive enough to believe that a grandchild might soften them, might remind them that love shouldn't come with a price tag. I remember bringing her home from the hospital, this tiny, perfect creature wrapped in a pink blanket, her fingers curled around mine like she was holding onto her whole world. My father looked at her for exactly 5 seconds before turning to me. "You'll need to find your own place soon. An infant is too disruptive to our routine." I found a job 3 weeks later working night shifts at a logistics company so I could be home during the day with Ava. I found an apartment in a neighborhood that wasn't quite safe but was all I could afford. I found a daycare that took infants and didn't ask too many questions when I dropped her off at 10 p.m. because my shift started at 11. And I started sending money. It began with a request. My parents needed help with their mortgage. Just temporary, they said, just until they got back on their feet. My father had taken early retirement, and his pension wasn't quite what they had expected. They had helped me after all during those 3 terrible months. It was only fair that I help them in return. $700 a month, every single month for 3 years. I worked doubles when I could. I skipped meals so Ava could have fresh fruit. I wore clothes from Goodwill and learned to cut my own hair. I watched my savings account hover perpetually near zero while my parents renovated their kitchen, bought a new car, and took a cruise to Alaska. "It's what family does," my mother would say whenever I gently, carefully tried to bring up the possibility of reducing the amount. "You're doing so well, Penelope. We're so proud of you." Proud. That word kept me chained for longer than I care to admit. My brother Mark was the golden child, of course. Younger by 3 years, he could do no wrong in their eyes. He had married Lena, a smart, sharp woman who worked in marketing, and they had a comfortable life with no children and dual incomes. I found out later, much later, that he had been sending them money too. $500 a month slipped quietly into their account with the understanding that it was our secret. They were playing us against each other, and we were too busy trying to earn their love to notice. The Monday morning ritual became my penance. Every week my alarm would go off at 9 a.m., no matter how little sleep I had gotten after my night shift. I would drag myself out of bed, make coffee that tasted like ash, and transfer the money while Ava colored at the kitchen table. She would stick her artwork on the refrigerator, bright crayon drawings of stick figure families, always with a grandma and grandpa standing off to the side, waving. "When can we visit Grandma and Grandpa?" she would ask, her 6-year-old voice filled with innocent hope. "Soon, baby," I would lie, kissing the top of her curly head. Soon. But they never wanted to visit. They were always too busy, too tired, too busy with church activities, too involved with their community garden, too committed to their book club. There was always a reason, always an excuse wrapped in apologetic language that felt like a slap. Then came Ava's 6th birthday. I had been planning it for months, saving every spare penny that wasn't already spoken for. I wanted to give her something magical, something that would make up for all the birthdays where it was just the two of us eating grocery store cake by candlelight in our small apartment. I booked a spot at the community center. I ordered a custom cake shaped like a castle because Ava was obsessed with princesses. I bought decorations in purple and silver, her favorite colors. I invited her little friends from school, my friend Sarah and her kids, and of course I invited my parents. "We'll be there," my mother had said on the phone, her voice warm in a way that made me want to believe her. We wouldn't miss it for the world. I spent the morning of her birthday transforming the community center's playroom into something out of a fairy tale. Sarah helped me hang streamers and blow up what felt like 1,000 balloons. Ava wore her princess dress, the one with the tulle skirt that she had picked out herself, and she twirled in front of the mirror at home, her face glowing with excitement. "Do I look pretty, Mommy?" she asked, adjusting the plastic tiara on her head. "You look absolutely beautiful, my love," I told her, blinking back tears because she was growing up so fast and because I could already feel the dread pooling in my stomach. The party started at 2 p.m. By 2:30, every guest had arrived except for Richard and Carol. Ava kept running to the door every time someone walked past, her face lighting up with hope before falling when it wasn't them. By 3 p.m., when we cut the cake, she had stopped running to the door. She sat quietly in her chair, picking at her slice of castle cake. Her earlier excitement dimmed to something that looked painfully like resignation. "Maybe they got stuck in traffic," Sarah whispered to me as she helped clean up, watching Ava play half-heartedly with her new toys in the corner. "Maybe," I said, but I knew better. By 5 p.m., the party was over. Parents collected their children, thanking me and telling Ava happy birthday with cheerful voices that felt like needles. Sarah stayed to help me pack up loading boxes into my car while I tried to keep smiling for Ava's sake. When we got home, Ava changed out of her princess dress in silence. She hung it carefully in her closet, smoothing out the tulle with her small hands, and then climbed into bed, even though it was barely past 6 o'clock. "I'm tired, Mommy," she said, clutching her stuffed bear that she had named Hope. "Can I just sleep?" I lay down beside her, wrapping my arms around her tiny body, and I felt something crack inside my chest. She fell asleep quickly, the way children do when they're emotionally exhausted, her breath evening out into soft puffs against my shirt. I stayed there until the room grew dark, until the streetlights outside cast their orange glow through the curtains. Then I carefully extracted myself from her bed and went to the living room where my phone sat on the coffee table, accusatory in its silence. No missed calls, no text messages, nothing. At 10 p.m., a text finally came through from my mother. No apology, no explanation. Just 7 words that felt like a formality. "Happy birthday to Ava from us." No punctuation, no warmth, just a message sent because it was expected, not because it was felt. I stared at that message for a long time, something cold and hard settling in my chest. Then I did something I had never done before. I called my father. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice irritated. "Penelope, it's late." "Why didn't you come?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Ava waited for you. She wore her princess dress. She kept asking when you would arrive." There was a pause, and I could hear the television in the background, the canned laughter of some sitcom they were watching instead of celebrating their granddaughter's birthday. "We never confirmed we were coming," he said, his tone dismissive. "You assumed. You said you would be there. Mom told me you wouldn't miss it." "Plans change, Penelope. We're not obligated to drop everything for every little party you throw." Every little party. I felt something inside me go still and quiet, like the moment before an earthquake when all the animals go silent. "She's 6 years old, Dad. She's your granddaughter." "Let me be very clear with you," he said, and I could hear him sitting up, could picture him adjusting his glasses the way he always did when he was about to deliver a verdict. "That child means nothing to us." The world stopped. Everything went quiet. Not silent, but quiet in the way that happens after something explodes when your ears are ringing and your brain is trying to catch up to what just happened. "What did you say?" I whispered. "You heard me. We never wanted you to have a child as a single mother. It was irresponsible. She is a consequence of your poor choices, and we have no interest in pretending otherwise. We've been more than generous with you, Penelope. Don't confuse financial support with emotional obligation." He hung up. The call ended with that decisive click, leaving me sitting there in my dark living room, my phone still pressed to my ear, listening to dead air. I don't remember walking to my bedroom. I don't remember opening my banking app. But suddenly, I was there staring at the automatic payment schedule, at all the evidence of 3 years of trying to buy love from people who had none to give. My hand was shaking so badly I almost couldn't tap the screen. But I did. I deleted the automatic payment. Then I went through my transaction history, looking at every $700 transfer, 21 months of them stretching back into the past. 21 payments. $14,700 that I had sent to people who thought my daughter meant nothing. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I was beyond crying. I was somewhere else entirely, somewhere cold and clear and absolutely certain. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and twice as many text messages. They all started appearing around 9 a.m., which I knew was when my father checked his bank account over his morning coffee. The first call was from Mr. Henderson, their landlord. I had been paying their rent directly to him for the past year as part of my monthly support. "Miss Vance, this is Robert Henderson. I just wanted to follow up about this month's rent. It's the 5th and I haven't received the usual payment. Is everything all right?" I took a deep breath, standing in my kitchen with Ava eating cereal at the table, still in her pajamas, with her hair sleep wild around her face. "Mr. Henderson, I apologize for any confusion, but I won't be covering their rent anymore. That arrangement has ended. You'll need to contact Richard and Carol directly." There was a pause. "I see. Well, I appreciate the heads up. I'll reach out to them today." The second call came from my brother Mark, his voice tight with stress. "Ellie, what the hell is going on? Dad just called me screaming about you cutting them off. What happened?" "Ask him what he said about Ava," I said quietly. What does Ava have to do with this?" "Just ask him, Mark. Ask him to repeat what he told me last night about her." I hung up before he could respond. 30 minutes later, Mark called back. His voice was different this time, quieter, shaken. "He told me," Mark said. "He told me what he said. Jesus, Ellie, I had no idea they felt that way." "Neither did I, not until last night." There was a long silence. Then Mark said something that surprised me. "I've been sending them money too. $500 a month for the past 2 years. They told me not to tell you that it would hurt your feelings to know they needed more help." I closed my eyes. Of course they had been bleeding both of us dry. "I'm done, Mark," I said. "I can't do this anymore." "I know," he said quietly. "I think I'm done too. Lena's been telling me for months that they're manipulating me. I didn't want to see it." We talked for an hour, comparing notes, realizing how thoroughly we had been played. They had told each of us different stories, different emergencies, different needs. They had pitted us against each other while draining us both. And we had let them because we wanted to believe that somewhere underneath all the dysfunction they actually cared. But they didn't. They never did. That afternoon, while Ava was at school, I received a notification that my mother had gone live on Facebook. With a sense of dread, I opened the app. There they were. My parents sitting side by side on their cream-colored couch, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, my father's face set in righteous anger. "We want to address some terrible lies that have been spread about us." My father began looking directly into the camera with the authority of someone used to being believed. "Our daughter Penelope has made some very serious accusations. She's told people that we're bad parents, that we don't care about our granddaughter, that we've somehow exploited her financially." My mother sniffled on cue. "We love our daughter. We've always loved her. But she has some issues, some mental health struggles that we've tried to help her with. We've given her so much support over the years, and this is how she repays us." My father leaned forward. "The truth is, Penelope has been forcing money on us, insisting we take it, and then using it as leverage to control our behavior. When we couldn't attend one birthday party due to prior commitments, she had a breakdown and decided to punish us by making up these horrible stories." I watched numb as the comments started rolling in. Most people were sympathetic to them. After all, they were older, they looked frail, they spoke with such conviction. They were pillars of their church community known for their volunteer work and their social respectability. I was just their troubled single mother daughter with a history of bad decisions. Then my father did something that made my blood run cold. He held up a photograph, one I recognized from Ava's birthday party. Sarah had taken it, had posted it on Facebook. It showed Ava in her princess dress, smiling, despite everything trying to be brave. "This is our granddaughter," my father said, his voice taking on a different tone, colder, harder. "And I want to be very clear about something. This child exists because of my daughter's poor choices. This child is not our responsibility. She means nothing to us." He said it, on camera, to thousands of people. He repeated the exact words he had said to me on the phone, but this time he was saying them publicly, doubling down, making sure everyone knew that his indifference wasn't a mistake or a moment of anger. It was his truth. The comments section exploded. The live stream ended, but the damage was done. Only this time the damage wasn't to me. People had heard what he said. They had watched him hold up a picture of a 6-year-old child and declare that she meant nothing. My phone started ringing again, but this time it was different people. Sarah called first. "Did you see it?" she asked, her voice shaking with anger. "I saw it. Ellie, he said that on camera. He said that about Ava, that sweet, perfect little girl. He just told the whole world that she means nothing to him." "I know." "Let them drown," Sarah said fiercely. She was a lawyer, sharp and strategic, and I had never heard her this furious. "Don't respond, don't engage. Let them sit in what they just did. The internet never forgets, and people are already turning on them." She was right. Within hours, the video had been shared across the local community groups. People were horrified. The comments that had initially supported my parents were being drowned out by outrage. How could grandparents say such things about a child? What kind of people hold up a photo of their granddaughter and declare her worthless? My father's church community started to notice. Pastor David, who had known my parents for 15 years, commented publicly that he would be reaching out to discuss the concerning statements made in the video. But the real turning point came 3 days later at the annual Vance family reunion. I wasn't planning to go. I couldn't imagine facing dozens of relatives after everything that had happened. But Mark called me that morning with a plan. "Lena and I are going," he said, "and we're going to make sure everyone knows the truth. You don't have to be there, but I want you to know that I'm done protecting them." "What are you going to do?" I asked. "You'll see, trust me." The family reunion was held at Uncle James's property, a sprawling piece of land with picnic tables and a lake. Mark and Lena arrived early, along with 50 other members of the extended Vance family. My parents arrived fashionably late, making an entrance as they always did. According to Mark, who called me immediately after my mother played the part of the wounded matriarch perfectly. She accepted hugs and sympathy, sighing heavily about her difficult daughter and how hard it was to deal with family betrayal. "We tried everything," she was saying to Aunt Patricia, her voice carrying across the lawn. "We've been nothing but supportive, and Penelope just decided to abandon us. And that poor child of hers. We wanted to be in her life, but Penelope won't allow it." That's when Mark stood up from the picnic table, his phone in his hand. "That's interesting, Mom," he said loudly, his voice cutting through the ambient conversation. "Because that's not what you and Dad said on your Facebook live stream." The gathering went quiet. People turned to look. My mother's face went pale. "Mark, this isn't the time or place." "No, I think it's exactly the time and place." Mark walked to the center of the gathering, holding up his phone. "Since you're telling everyone your version of events, I think they should hear Dad's actual words, the ones he said on camera for everyone to see." He pressed play. My father's voice rang out across the reunion, tinny through the phone speaker, but perfectly clear. "This child exists because of my daughter's poor choices. This child is not our responsibility. She means nothing to us." The silence that followed was deafening. Uncle James, the patriarch of the extended family, stood up slowly from his chair. He was 83 years old, a retired Marine, and when he spoke, people listened. "Richard," he said, his voice quiet but carrying. "Did you really say that about your granddaughter?" My father's face had gone red. "That was taken out of context." Context. Uncle James looked at him with something close to disgust. "What context makes it acceptable to say a child means nothing?" "You don't understand the full situation," my father started, but Uncle James held up his hand. "Get out," he said simply. "You're not welcome here anymore. Not at my home, not at family events, not until you figure out what family actually means." There was a murmur of agreement around the gathering. Aunt Patricia, who had been sympathetically holding my mother's hand moments before, let go and stepped away. One by one, relatives who had known my parents for decades turned their backs. My parents left in humiliation, my mother crying real tears, now my father's face rigid with fury. But Lena wasn't done. While they were packing up to leave, she had been recording. She caught my mother's final words as they got into their car. "They'll regret this," Carol hissed to Richard. "All of them, especially that ungrateful girl and her little mistake." Lena posted the video that evening with a simple caption, "This is who they really are." It went viral in our small town. The combination of the Facebook live stream and the reunion video created a narrative that even my parents couldn't spin. They weren't the wronged parties. They weren't the martyred parents. They were toxic, manipulative people who had publicly disowned their own grandchild. The consequences came swiftly. Mr. Henderson gave them 30 days' notice to vacate. Their church removed their photos from the website and quietly asked them to stop attending. Friends stopped calling. Invitations dried up. The social currency they had spent decades building evaporated in a matter of days. And me, I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I didn't even feel particularly vindicated. I just felt free. I took Ava to the park that weekend. We drew pictures with chalk on the sidewalk, colorful stars and flowers and stick figure families that didn't include anyone who didn't want to be there. She drew one for Uncle Mark and Aunt Lena, who had started coming over every weekend to spend time with her. "Mommy," Ava said as she added purple flowers around the stick figures, "are we a family?" "Yes, baby," I said, watching her create her own definition of what family meant. "We are." Mark and Lena became regular fixtures in our lives. We had dinner together every Sunday. They came to Ava's school events. They showed up consistently and lovingly, proving that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choice and presence and love that doesn't come with conditions. My Aunt Virginia, my mother's sister who had always been kind to me, sent me a letter a week after the reunion. I opened it at my kitchen table, Ava coloring beside me. "Dear Ellie," it read, "I've watched your parents operate this way for 30 years. They choose pride over love every single time. You chose your child. You chose freedom. That is what family really means. You are braver than you know." Inside the envelope was another piece of paper with a single line written in her elegant handwriting. "Kindness with boundaries is strength." I taped it to my refrigerator right next to Ava's drawing of our stick figure family. The last time I heard from my parents was 6 weeks after I cut off their funding. My mother called from an unknown number, perhaps thinking I wouldn't answer. "Penelope," she said when I picked up, her voice strained. "We need to talk." "No," I said quietly. "We don't. You can't just abandon your parents. We raised you. We deserve your support." "You told me my daughter means nothing to you." I said, my voice calm and clear. "You said it to my face. You said it to the world, and you showed me exactly how much I mean to you every time you took my money and gave me nothing but contempt in return." "We didn't mean it like that. You're twisting our words." "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. Then I blocked the number. It was the last conversation I ever had with either of them. That was 8 months ago. Today, I wake up in the same small apartment, still working the same job, still managing on a tight budget. But everything feels different, lighter. The money I used to send to my parents now goes into a savings account for Ava. She's started gymnastics classes. We're planning a trip to the beach next summer. Small things, real things. I see my brother every week. Aunt Virginia video calls from Florida to read bedtime stories to Ava. Sarah's kids and mine have play dates where no one is keeping score of who owes what to whom. My parents moved out of state, I heard through the family grapevine. Somewhere cheaper, somewhere they could afford without our support. Somewhere where people didn't know their story. I don't know where exactly, and I've found that I don't need to know. Sometimes late at night after Ava has gone to sleep, I think about that phone call. Those 5 words that broke everything open. "That child means nothing to us." And I realize now that they did me a favor. They finally told me the truth. They finally showed me who they really were, clearly and unmistakably. And in doing so, they freed me from the exhausting work of trying to earn love from people who had none to give. I chose my daughter. I chose freedom. And that choice, quiet and firm and final, was the greatest revenge I could ever have given them. Because I'm happy now. Because I've built a life filled with people who actually show up, who actually care, who believe that love is an action, not a transaction. They chose pride. I chose peace. And peace, I've discovered, is priceless. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic confrontation or carefully planned payback. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let toxic people steal any more of your life. It's choosing yourself, choosing your children, and building something beautiful from the wreckage they left behind. They wanted me to feel worthless. Instead, I discovered my worth, and that, more than anything, is victory. Have you ever had to make the impossible choice between toxic family and your own peace? Have you struggled with setting boundaries with people who think love means unlimited access to your resources, your time, and your soul? Drop your story in the comments below. You're not alone in this. And if this story touched you, if it made you think about your own situation, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the hardest moments. Because your story matters. Your peace matters. And sometimes the bravest thing you can ever do is choose yourself.